Tēnā koutou. Tēnei au te tahi o ngā mokopuna, ngā koro tīpuna, poraurangi me tahu pōtiki, me tō rāua wahine a hamo te rangi e mihi atu kia koutou. Ngā maunga, ngā awa, ngā moka, o tēnā o ngā marae o Aotearoa, tēnā koutou e whakakotahi nei I runga I tēnei kaupapa ātāhua I tēnei ahi. Ki tāku titiro atu, ko te nuinga o koutou, e mahi ana, e mau ana, e waha ana e nei kaupapa he wahine. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia koutou hoki ngā tāne. I runga I tērā whakaaro, me poroporo aki ahau hoki, ki ngā wahine toa katahi anō ka nuku atu I tēnei wāho o te whenua kahipatu I te tatau a hine nui te pō, ara ko Kātirina te hei kōko, ko te whetū Marama, Tiri Kātene Sullivan, ko Megan Joe, a waiake, o tēnā whānau, o tēnā hapu, o tēnā iwi. Paurira wātu a hau I te rongo atu. Kua mate rātou, me taku whakaaro ko te nui o ngā koha, kua koha mai kia mātou, e rātou, ia rātou e takahi te mata o te whenua. Hoi anō I runga I tērā whakaaro mō rātou, hoki mai kia tātou, e mahi nei I runga I enei kaupapa a tāhua, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. I'm absolutely delighted to be here this afternoon to participate in the launching of this report. I was given a prepared speech, but it's not like me to give a prepared speech. In fact, I was brought up very much with the notion that one should be required to inform, educate and entertain, and do that without vast preparation of notes. And in fact, to read a speech was an insult to people and certainly to the oral culture which we are all a part of. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon because I have long been a warrior in the interests of the potential of Māori people, of the positiveness of what it is that we have to contribute, of the fact that we don't need to compromise our identity in order to be participants in and navigators of our own future. So I am absolutely pleased to be associated with the kind of work that you have been participating in today. I'd like to start by acknowledging Dr. Kathy Irwin, the author of this wonderful report, the celebration that it is of the people who've contributed to it as well as the subjects of it, the Family Commission for taking the idea of a whānau strategy past rhetoric and into the beginning of substance, because of course research is the prelude, one would hope, to policy making, which itself is the prelude to actual action in the field. I came back into the public service in 2004, back into the job I'd held 12 years early as Deputy Secretary or General Manager of Policy at Te Puni Kōkiri. And the kaupapa that I was most involved in driving was, first of all, articulating and then developing a policy called Realising Māori Potential. And that kaupapa sought from the outset to say what was right about us, not what was wrong, what was a norm for us rather than for the mainstream, what were our strengths rather than our weakness, what were the contributions we could make rather than what we should be given as state dependents. So while it is true that there is a litany of statistics that tells a particular story about particular parts of our whānau, that dimension has always obscured the vast majority of what it is to be Māori, to be part of a whānau, to be part of a hapu and to be part of an iwi. Often we were told, we are still told in fact, that we have the highest proportion of Māori in prison. Yes, we do, but that amounts to what? About 4,500, Kim? And that is a sad indictment. But that means about 796,000 of us are not in jail. Okay? And so It is my practice, and I commend this practice to you, to constantly turn statistics around and say, yes, that is one truth, but there are many more, and those are the ones that we celebrate and that give us strength in the work that we do. I'm particularly pleased in reading this report to see that it begins with my own personal mantra, which is the E Tupuerea gift from Sir Apirana Ngata. I had the great good fortune to go to the school established in his memory, Ngata Memorial College. By the way, I am a product of all Decile 1 education. You are not condemned to be a second-rate citizen because you're brown, rural and went to a Decile 1 school, and nor should we allow the teachers and principals of the education system, she said, noting the Ministry of Education at the back of the room, that somehow Decile rating condemns us to a substandard education. In fact, I went to school where teachers really were involved in your learning and the encouragement of doing well. Ngata Memorial College, I think, distinguishes itself by being one of the first schools in New Zealand that didn't need to borrow from German, Latin or French to have its motto. It used Ngāti Porou. And so, e tupuerea mō ngā rā o tō ao, grow up and fulfil the needs of your generation. Ko tō ringa ki ngā rākau a te Pākehā hei oranga mō tō tinana. You're hand-grasping the arts of your contemporary world for your material well-being. Ko tō ngākau ki ngā taonga a o tipuna Māori hei tiki-tiki mō tō māhuna. Your heart cherishing the treasures of your ancestors is a plume for your head. A ko tō wairua ki te atua, nāna nei ngā mea katoa. Your soul given to God, author of all things. And as a granddaughter of an Anglican minister, I feel completely comfortable reiterating that in these challenging atheist times. And so that motto to me is simple and elegant and powerful and has been the recipe for my life and the one that continues to keep me on track for the things that I do. And part and parcel of that, which I think resonates with the theme of this afternoon's or today's conversation and the one that will go on, is that whānau are the basis of who we are. And it is important, and I will return to this theme, it is important that we understand that there is no one recipe for a good whānau. We can get constrained by the idea of this whānau is the kind of model that we all should be having, and we know that actually the configurations of our household cohorts, to use statistical language, are changing all the time as we confront the fact that making your bed and lying in it, which was the condemnation of unhappy marriages, is no longer a constraint for women liberating themselves from misery and unhappiness. So I come from a whānau, a very symmetrical whānau, 5 boys, 5 girls, the oldest and the youngest born on exactly the same day, 20 years apart. We were celebrating my older brother's 20th birthday when my ever-productive mother passed the message that our baby sister had been born. We're all born about 2 years apart. We did grow up in a family. I think we were absolutely blessed with the parents that our family had. My father, Ngaitahu before it was popular, brought with him to the East Coast his largely Scottish Presbyterian upbringing by my beautiful grandmother, Margaret Helen Cowie, because my father's Māori parent died when my father was very young. That, of course, did not stop my father, having arrived in Ruatoria, in the capital of Ngāti Porou, constantly opining about how much better Ngaitahu was than anything Ngāti Porou had to offer, including telling us, yes, Ngāti Porou is good at gabbing, but it's Ngaitahu that's contributed to your education. And that was because Ngaitahu, I think, paid a reasonably small sum, but it was the symbol of a commitment to the investment in education. And on the other hand, my mother, Hiria Te Keakea Redi, grew up in a very small hapu, Ngāti Horowai at Te Horo. She was brought up by a brother and sister who had no issue of their own. She was taken by my great-grandmother, Materoa Ngārimu Redi, to this hapu because she was concerned that our hapu were growing apart. And she practiced that tikanga of children bringing whānau and hapu together, and it most definitely has done that for us. Our family, in fact, we've just recently had to make a choice which rohe we would vote in for the post-settlement governance entity of Ngāti Porou, and so I have opted to vote in the Ngāti Horowai rohe, again out of respect for and celebration of the gift of upbringing that hapu gave to my fabulous mother. And my mother was fabulous. She died 2 years ago, and you can tell I miss her still. And she imbued in us an absolute belief in whānau, whakapapa and whanaungatanga. And what I've learnt from that is that actually Māori preceded Google in having databases. Māori and their ability to map kinship is just outstanding. I say that absolutely seriously. Those who have that computer gene, that data chip in their heads, and in our case, my brother Selwyn has it. He must have a megabyte worth in his head, because she brought us up and he has carried on, constantly reminding us how we're related to someone, who we're related to, what that relationship requires of us. Not what we get from it, but what it requires of us. And so this whole notion of being connected has been a very important part of my upbringing, because it leads on to the other value that has been an important dimension of my upbringing and approach, and that is of identity. I understand that you heard from Uncle Api this morning, and he gave you the world view as seen from the taumata or Hikurangi Maunga. And I can recall from a very, well, when I finished the fifth form, we had to move from Ruatoria to go to the big smoke of Gisborne and enrol in Gisborne Girls High. 3 Parata girls transferred there at the same time, my 2 younger sisters and me. And I can remember very clearly the principal of the school calling me in and telling me what my problem was. Because hitherto, therefore, I hadn't known I had a problem, but fortunately she was able to apprise me of this, and it was that, unlike other Māori girls she'd met, I had a superiority complex. And that superiority complex was born of the ingredients. I know my Auntie June Mead tells me that when she went to Hukarere, she thought, as I did, and neither of us realised that this wasn't a widely held view, that the only tribe in New Zealand was Ngāti Porou, that the greatest leader of all time was Sir Āpira Ngata, absolutely true, and that everyone was an Anglican. But we grew up with a mother who today would be described as xenophobic. She didn't think that we were Maori. No, we're Ngāti Porou. And more than that, we're from, Taitanga Mate and Ngāti Horowai and so forth. And so I have carried on that tradition. I have brought my daughters up to understand that they are special, unique, powerful, smart, strong, that they carry their connections with them wherever they go. My older daughter is Rākai Te Mania. She descends from 27 generations of women leaders whose role were to provide for the community. Our second daughter, because her father is whānau Apanui, has a whānau Apanui name, Mihi Maraia, so that when they want to oppose energy and resources, they get both of us at the same time. My girls know that their names tell a story about who they are, who they're connected to, and why it is that their pocket money is tithed to those marae. So, because they can't get to working bees, but they can contribute back and keep that link going in some other practical way. So whānau, identity, and the third, the cornerstone of this triangle upon which I stand, and I understand from architects that triangles are the most powerful structure, is education. Education, education, education. Those are the answers. We liberate ourselves when we participate in education and we facilitate our young people being successful in education. And we know that there are challenges there as well as opportunities. And I say to my girls, my responsibility to you as a mother is to ensure that you have good health, an excellent education, and an absolutely fabulous set of principles. And you go out in the world and you become Ngāti Porou and Ngāti Awa, citizens of the world. Kia ora Ngāti Awa. Wira tells this very sad story of driving over the Rangitaki Plains when our girls were babies and saying to them, titiro, kōtiro, koto maunga tēnā a pūtauaki. And the girl said, kāre pāpā, heku rangi te maunga, waia Pipitea awa, Ngāti Porou te iwi. And so whānau, identity, education, those to me, for me, are the most powerful foundations that we can have. And I want to go on to just one further thing and then finish by launching this fabulous report. It is important when we talk about Māori development or iwi development that in the same way as we talk about whānau or hapu development, that we don't have in our minds that there is only one model. Okay? Because I am tired of people saying to me, oh, you must have been lucky. You must have been lucky. By the way, this is Māori saying this to me, not non-Māori. Oh, you must have been lucky. And I turn up in my Chanel suits, yes. And, and I have been well educated and I choose, the quality of life that I have in my life, and I work hard to achieve that. And I work hard within my family to achieve that. Ahua whakamahau kei whakaaro, kei pōhehe koutou, he whakahihi tēnei kōrero, kāore. He whakamārama tēnei kia tātou. Because I'm really concerned that some of the debate, the discourse, to use that wonderful academic word, too often the discourse around things Māori is somehow characterised or circumscribed by poverty. That somehow you're not a real Māori if you're, quote, rich. You're not a real Māori if you have aspirations to be wealthy and well off. You're not a real Māori if your pathway forward tramps the road, as Robert Frost would have said, least travelled. That somehow or another there's one pathway and it looks like this. And there's one kind of job you should be engaged in and it looks like this. If those were the minimal aspirations that our tipuna had, they would have stayed in Hawaii. All right, so they decided, without knowing exactly where they were headed, that they were going there. And they got together, and by the way, they only needed 1 man and 57 women. There's some nefarious research that I've heard, and I've never seen the evidence for it, that that's all you require for a sustainable community. And I have said this to a group before where the men have then said to me, well, but one happy man. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So, our tipuna would have not set sail from Hawaii. For those who believe they came from Hawaii, we, of course, of Horota were the taxi cab of the Pacific, going backwards and forwards, bringing that takeaway kumara. But I don't want to obscure a really serious point, because I get this too of, if you're in politics, you should be in the Māori Party or the Mana Party. Or being Māori, I mean, and or if you're more traditional, then the Labour Party. You know, and how short our his and her story is, because this same very fabulous Te Āpira Ngata was in fact a member of the National Party. I'm not going to politic you, lest you be afraid of that, but come 26 August... no, so what I'm saying is there isn't one way. There isn't an only way. In fact, I came to Parliament because of the endless possibilities of realising the potential of who we are as a people. I want all Māori to be wealthy. I want all New Zealanders to be wealthy. I want our country to be wealthy. I want all that is important and unique about us, our beautiful environment, our island nation, our participation in the Pacific, our commitment to egalitarianism and equality, our bicultural foundation. I want all of that and more for our country. And guess what? It takes a strong economy. And guess what? No one lives a happy life dependent on the state. Nobody. Nobody wants to live their lives in 2-week increments. Nobody. Nobody wants to live their lives driven by debt. Nobody. All right, so we have to build these educated people, these stories in here of these magnificent, marvellous people who in their time are carving out their pathway, who are navigating their future, and in so doing contributing to the colourful and diverse mosaic of who we are as Aotearoa New Zealand and as iwi and hapu members of this fabulously rich population. We need to get rid of the poverty mindset and replace it with the potential mindset. We need to get rid of the negative stereotypes that, as Kyle pointed out, this book indisputably confronts and says there are great stories, there are great narratives, there are great people, and we need to tell those stories and those narratives to ourselves over and over and over again, because we are fabulous. And my goal in coming to government, ironically, is to get government out of our lives. Government is not our closest aunt and uncle. Government is not our grandmother and grandfather. Government, by the way, is not going to save te reo Māori. We are. Mehe mea kāre tātou I te kōrero Māori ka ngaro. Aha koa te tapepe o taku reo, ia wiki, aha koa taku patu te manawa, ka haere anō au ki rungo o te karere, kōrero ki te ao whānui, me tētahi whakamātautau, ia wiki, tuku mai tētahi imera kia kaha girl, engari ko tētahi kupu anei. Ko te nuinga o ngā kōrero kia, ātaua tērā, ko tino te he tō tērā, me taku whakahoki kia rāta, pēhe te kōrero, he pai. So it's not government that's going to save te reo. It's not government that's going to save our marae, and nor should it be. It's us. It's what we do. So I don't want government in our lives. The more we can get it out of our lives, as far as I'm concerned, the better. And in so doing, we create that wonderful space where we can be powerful actors in our own lives. So I have great pleasure in launching this fabulous report and all the stories it tells about the powerful actors in their own lives, and the continuity that it promises us of whānau yesterday, today and tomorrow. Tēnā koutou katoa.